Hello, friends, and welcome to our SBT Sutra Studies class. It's another fine Saturday. My name is Venerable Tarpa, and like always, before we begin the class, let's take a moment to appreciate our handsome community gathered here today. Today, I feel fortunate to sit as a member of this kind community in the safety and security of like-minded friends, sharing this present moment with others dedicated to the cultivation of goodness. Today, I'm grateful for the direction and support that this community provides, a community worthy of my time and commitment, a community where my efforts have meaning, purpose, and are appreciated. Today, I'm thankful for this community of awakening, a place to gain the knowledge and skills to improve my life, a family, a home, and a sanctuary for all of us seeking refuge from the storm. And let's remember, as conscientious practitioners, we must recognize our responsibility to the world, to strive to live skillfully while helping others to do the same, to strive to live in balance and harmony with nature and others, to strive to gain mastery over our minds and embody our true benevolent nature, to expand our hearts and minds, transcending our shared human limitations, to not intentionally harm sentient life or our planet, and to maturely accept and embrace the reality of our situation while striving to improve it. Again, welcome back to our SBT Sutra class. We are currently examining the Dhammachakkapavatana Sutra, the setting in motion of the Wheel of Dharma Sutra, or simply the Wheel Turning Sutra. We missed last week's class because I had a terrible summer cold. I tried to make it, but I wasn't able to. I had to take the night off. So we're going to recap a little bit. This sutra is considered to be a record of the first sermon given by the Buddha at the legendary deer park at Sarnath, India, which is just outside of Varanasi, India. You can visit the place even now. It's beautiful. And I don't know if I've ever explained that sentence, but when we say it's considered to be the record of the first sermon, it's because there's some controversy of different opinions of whether it actually was or not. And I think that that's pretty irrelevant. It's still the great sutra of all the teachings, which, like it says, it sets the wheel. It sets the motion of the wheel of Dharma, and the wheel of Dharma is the momentum of life, right? The motion of life. That's what this does. It sets forth the Buddhist teachings, and so it serves that purpose well. We'll be studying 3 versions or translations of this sutra, allowing us to contrast and compare the material from different viewpoints. Our main text is by the legendary Bhikkhu Bodhi from the Theravada tradition. We have another by Chokyi Nyima Rinpoche from the Tibetan tradition, and a third by Thich Nhat Hanh from the Zen tradition. All of these texts are free to download and share. You can find them on our website, sbtonline.org. So let's just take a second to review what we talked about 2 weeks ago. The beginning of the sutra sets out and talks about and somewhat defines the middle way path. The interesting thing about this sutra is that although it's clearly such an important sutra, I think everyone's always amazed with how short it is and how little they actually define any of the terms, right? This talks about some of the first main principles of Buddhism, the middle way, the Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths, but it's kind of bizarre that it doesn't really go into great detail. And to know more, we have to go to other sutras and throughout the canon and find more about these topics. Last week we talked about the Buddha's middle way path, the path of moderation and balance. We also talked about that My take is that there's four aspects to the middle way path. The first one is that the middle way path is a middle way between extremes of overindulgence and extreme asceticism. It's finding that middle way in life, not to be fixated on the desire for pleasure and getting pleasure, or its opposite of punishing the body through asceticism, trying to reach liberation. So the second one is a middle way of being, meaning to abide, whether in meditation or outside of meditation, to abide or just to be in equanimity, neither anxious nor lax, not favoring nor opposing, right? This objective state in the middle. The third way of the middle way is the middle way philosophy, the actual written philosophy. And this is a philosophy that lies between the extreme views, and especially the extreme views of nihilism on one side and absolutism on the other side. Nihilism is that nothing exists and nothing's important, and we just live and die and we're worm food. And absolutism, which is the opposite, where life is grandiose, and when we die we go to heaven and we live forever. And so the middle way between these two views, and these views are also encapsulated in the next one, the fourth aspect, which is a middle way between the two predominant religions of the Buddha's day: the highly materialistic Brahmanism, which we could call that absolutism, and excessively ascetic Jainism, or they say Jainism. They always pronounce it kind of strange. Yeah. So these are the different aspects of the middle way, right? It's not necessarily simple. There's quite a few different aspects. Okay, so that brings us up to speed. That was the first topic in the sutra. Today we're moving on to the second topic of the sutra. And one thing that I forgot to do, let me do it right now. I forgot to actually put the sutras up on my screen. Oh, this will take me a second. My apologies. Let me do that quickly. And actually, since we're just recouping, I think I'm just going to put one up. We'll just put Bhikkhu Bodhis up. Okay, here we go. I got Bhikkhu Bodhis up here. And I think that this will be just fine. Good. Again, my apologies for that. Let me put it up here real quick. And then I'll find where we are here. Oh, and this isn't going to be far through this. Oh, there we are. We're right up at the top. So we talked about the middle way. And then from the middle way, and I'm going to give you something to think about as we explore the Eightfold Path. Let's start up here somewhere without veering towards either of these extremes. The Tathagata, which is another word for enlightened being or Buddha, has awakened to the middle way, which gives rise to vision, which gives rise to knowledge, which leads to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, and to nibbana. And what bhikkhus, meaning monk, is that middle way awakened to by the Tathagata, which gives rise to vision, etc., and leads to nirvana? It is this noble eightfold path that is right view, right intentions, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. That's what we're going to study today. This bhikkhu is the middle way awakened to by the Tathagata, which gives rise to vision, which gives rise to knowledge, peace, direct knowledge, enlightenment, and nibbana. And then he goes on to talk about the Four Noble Truths, which we'll talk about next week. So in this, and I wanted to read one part again, maybe this is a little clue for me. And what is this? And what leads to nibbana? It is this noble eightfold path. that answers one of the questions that I was going to present to you. I didn't necessarily see it the first time. It sounded to me the first time we read through this that it was claiming that the Eightfold Path was the middle way. And I thought that was a little bit strange. So now in the first sentence it says, what is that leads to nibbana? So maybe it is still that. It's this Noble Eightfold Path, right? And then it says, this bhikkhu is that middle way awakened to. So it sounds like to me he's claiming that the Noble Eightfold Path is the middle way. And I don't doubt that. I was just having a little difficulty wrapping my mind around it. And I thought maybe some of you could help me and we could talk about that. So I wanted you to be aware of that as we start talking about the Eightfold Path. And as we're going to go through these one by one, and you can, okay. Do I want a spotlight? Sure I will. Thank you. Thank you, Choki. She's always taking care of me. You're wonderful, Choki. I have to pay her every month for the service, but it's okay. She's a great secretary. Okay, and I'll put this online. So today, this is what we're going to go through, and it should just be, again, a nice, light, fun class. We're going to talk about the Eightfold Path. So again, in the sutra, they talk so little about the Eightfold Path or the Four Noble Truths. I thought it would be a great time to take our time through the sutra and just do a little reminder, a little review, a little teaching on the subjects. And so the other thing I thought was a little bit odd was that they start with the Eightfold Path, mentioning it in the sutra, before they talk about the Four Noble Truths. And as many of you are aware, the Eightfold Path is the fourth step of the Eight Noble Truth. But so it seems like it would have naturally came at the end. Maybe it's no big deal, but I thought that was interesting. The Noble Eightfold Path is simply the Buddha's prescribed method for awakening. That's it. These are the things needed for awakening. And as far as Theravada Buddhism is concerned, this is a complete method. And I agree. I think if you really understand what it is, and we're going to try to today, it really is the whole complete Buddhist path in one package. And they often say that everything, all the aspects of the Buddhist teachings are contained within the Four Noble Truths, meaning that the Buddha teaches the Four Noble Truths, including the Eightfold Path. Everything else is a derivative from that, right? All the other Buddhist teachings, they go deeper in the subjects, but they're all arising from these initial teachings. And I do believe that's very true. So the first one is the most important, right view. Let's talk about one more thing before we dig in. How you progress on the path. This is fascinating because there's so many different teachers who have different opinions on how you practice the Eightfold Path. Like everything else in Buddhism, everybody's got an opinion. Some people, and they're adamant that they're right and everyone else is wrong. Some say you have to achieve each level one by one before you move to the others. Others say, no, it's their causal, I guess you'd say, that they all are interdependent. I guess the better word would be holistic. They're interdependent. You work at all of them at the same time in the same amount of effort. And then other people have their own opinions. And some people lay out really peculiar ways of following the Eightfold Path. The one I enjoy and the one that I learned is to approach these holistically. And at the time, I think it seems to me the only real logical thing to do. And what I mean by holistically, I mean we practice all of them at the same time. We do the best, we do the best we can. Sometimes you might be practicing certain ones more than others, but generally we're kind of working at all of them at the same time. And to make my case the very first one, right view, is the end result of our practice, right? We talked about right view and skillful living. What is right view? Technically, it's understanding the true nature of ourselves and reality. Meaning, some people would say, which is synonymous, some people would say understanding the Buddhist teachings, because the Buddhist teachings, that's what they do. They help us understand our true nature and true nature of reality. You could say right view in other terms, you could say proper perspective. Maybe better, productive perspective. You like that? Yeah. Because as secular Buddhists and very agnostic as we are, sometimes it doesn't matter if we have exactly the right truth. Sometimes what matters is we have a provisional truth that's productive for what we're doing and gets us to a point where we can understand truth better than we do now, right? So we could say that a productive perspective, and when we talk about perspective or view, we mean seeing, understanding, projecting who and what we are, our relationship to others, how we relate to our environment, how we relate to reality. Just right view is just understanding how life works. This thing that I call my life. Right view is that aha moment, and you go, oh, I finally get it. This is how life works, and this is how I work with life to flourish in my existence, right? Beautifully said, right? That's right view. It's really simple. But what's funny is that it's the first one here, right? So how do you accomplish that first and then move on to acting good and behaving well, right? It just makes no sense to me. And Bhikkhu Bodhi has a really weird one that I'm going to share with you at the end, which I think I like. So that's right view. Any questions? Pretty clear. I can't see everybody on my screen, so if you have a question, you can yell it out, or Neil can tell me if anybody has their hand up. Neil, if we get any chats, you can read questions, but if people are posting comments, everybody here can read the comments, so you don't need to do that. Okay, let's move on to number 2. Right intention. Sometimes this is translated in different ways. Sometimes they say right thought or others. I really like right intention, right? And so traditionally, it's this idea of renunciation, benevolence, and compassion. I'll explain. Renunciation is one of the main aspects of the Mahayana path, and of course of all Buddhism. And renunciation means moving away from non-truth, right? Renunciation means understanding what's to be cultivated and what's to be abandoned. What's to be cultivated are the next one, benevolence. All our good qualities are to be cultivated, right? Having joyful efforts, friendship, hard work, all these wonderful qualities, virtue and wholesomeness, these need to be cultivated. What needs to be abandoned? All our afflictions, all our human limitations, all our drama, all our garbage. So understanding that is the idea of renunciation. You understand what's to be abandoned and what's to be cultivated, and you renounce those things that are to be abandoned, and you move towards those things that are to be cultivated. Tibetan Buddhism, there was a teacher in the Tibetan archive library in Dharamsala, Geshe Ramden or something. He was great, and I loved his definition of renunciation, and it was the wish for freedom. Isn't that weird, huh? How do renunciation in English, we think of, you can renounce bad things like smoking and, bad habits. But renunciation is the wish for freedom. And the meaning being, this wish for freedom is what makes us to abandon or renounce all of this stuff in our lives. Like we might renounce worldly pleasures that we realize aren't really benefiting us as much as we think they are. So that's the idea of renunciation. A bit of a complex term in Tibetan. We did a whole series on it, but quite beautiful in a lot of ways. The next word is benevolence, and this is goodness, right? So intention is, and these are the proper intention, right intention, the proper intention to have. The first one, renunciation, to have the wish for freedom. And that wish to freedom is what causes you to abandon those afflictions and what to cultivate those beautiful qualities. The right intention is benevolence. It's goodness. It's the cultivation of goodness in every aspect of the word, from friendship and kindness and loving kindness, then doing the right thing and community responsibility and fair play and justice, you name it. It's all in there, right? And then lastly, compassion, which is a benevolence, but compassion can be more focused on others. We could use the word altruism, right? The right intention is to be focused on our community, helping others, to realize that we're deeply connected with others, and by helping others, we're secretly helping ourselves. And when we help ourselves in virtuous ways, we're indeed helping others. So that's right intention. Right speech is pretty clear. Avoid lying, slander, gossip, harsh words, idle chatter, and abuse. That's pretty clear. And number 4, right action. Ethical behavior that conforms to the Buddhist teachings. So just about everybody here I think, has refuge vows. And for those that don't, you might have heard of the 10 virtuous and non-virtuous actions. That kind of outlines what the Buddha means by right action, and also right speech as well. And so we want to behave in ways, again, that conform with the Buddhist teachings. Right livelihood, avoiding work that directly or indirectly harms sentient beings. Now, this is interesting because it means more than, I gave these very short little definitions, but right livelihood goes beyond occupation. It's not just your job or your career. Excuse me. Right livelihood entails all the things you do to acquire the things you need to live, right? So it means how you shop, how you deal with other, how you trade, how you say going to the market and you realize the cashier made a mistake and you get something for free. It's about things like, pointing out the mistake, but it's also about not coercing or manipulating others, to somehow sneakily getting away with getting free cable, or all of these things that a lot of us do. And it's up to you how far you take it. I'm not judge and jury. That's not what we do in SBT. But things like that could be considered like that. Cheating on taxes could be considered part of that. It's just all the things you do kind of to make your life function, right? We want to do it in a proper way as best we can. It's not always a simple topic or aspect of the path. Traditionally in the teachings, they have a focus on occupation first. They mention both, but they mention occupation, and they actually go through a list of jobs that you shouldn't do. One is a weapon seller. Remember, this is 2,600 years ago in the Bronze Age. Someone who works with meat, either the slaughterer or the butcher. In fact, butchers' sons or daughters, they're not allowed to be monks or nuns in the Buddhist tradition. It's considered a non-virtuous lifestyle. And in Tibet, in Lhasa, they always had a little corner of Lhasa that they allowed a Muslim community to live. And it just so happens the Muslims happen to be butchers. Now, I'm not saying anything, but you could use your own imagination. Nevertheless, that's what right livelihood is. And let's move to number 6, right effort. This is one of my favorites. And because I think it's the most misunderstood, I talk about it here simply as applying proper exertion in your path. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, the last three, are connected. Now, in the Theravada tradition, they make a stronger emphasis about this. And they claim that the last three specifically are related to meditation. The Mahayana school sees the meditation on and off the cushion. They see these. So the Mahayana, when I was with them, I learned right effort is just putting your right effort into life itself, to not be lazy, to be diligent, but to be good at your meditation and all your practices. But let's talk about right effort when it comes to meditation, which I think is one of the most important. We have this lovely idea in SBT, the difference between meditating and vegetating. It's kind of a joke, right? But with vegetating, it's the idea that you do all the proper things you're supposed to. You sit down, you get your position, you follow your breath, following the instructions, but you're just kind of going through the motions, right? Yes, you're following the breath, but you're not really putting much effort into it. It's just there. So we would say that this is wrong effort. Right effort is really putting a little something into that. A bit of diligence in the next quality of your mindfulness, while you're on the cushion, it's meditation time. Come on, let's try to make this meditation a good one, right? It's that little effort. I could compare it to when your kid's in school and you could sit through class and say, yeah, and scribble down some notes. Or you could make up your mind that you are going to really do well in class today. And you could sit up straight, really focus on the board, take extra good notes. This is the idea, that's right effort. Well, guess what? It's the same thing on the meditation cushion. You can sit there like you're a bad boy chewing gum at the back of class. Or you could say, no, I'm going to get a good grade this period. And you could sit up, take notes, and really put some effort into your practice. But it is supposed to be a joyous effort. It's not a heavy thing, right? It's to find the joy in meditation, to find the joy in study. And I think this is really the secret to meditation. If you haven't found the pleasure yet, it takes a little while to get to those really pleasurable states of meditation. If you haven't found the pleasure and the joy, that should be one of your first aims in meditation. And guess what? Even if you're faking it, it'll help you get there. So even if you don't feel joy from the meditation, if you try to lift that joy up inside you and engage it and create it, you'll lead to the habit of it, and the authentic joy will come from it. Okay, so that's my take on right efforts. Right mindfulness, again, this is related to meditation, to focus properly and fully upon one's object of meditation. So this can apply to both calm abiding and insight meditation. Mindfulness, effort is that energy and the intention to do a good job, right? It's that intention that I'm gonna put something into it, and the energy that allows you to do it. Mindfulness, a lot of people talk about it kind of being like the gatekeeper, right? Catherine loves that. I think it's a Stephen Batchelor thing. The gatekeeper. Mindfulness watches over everything and makes sure that things are happening the way they should happen. And it's a gatekeeper over your awareness. Now, we could use the word awareness, we could use the word focus, we could use the word attention. They're all basically the same idea. And so that's what mindfulness does. It guards that. Like, where is our attention? What is it doing? And so having that proper mindfulness that can keep our mind on the practice at hand. Now, this is, although they pertain to meditation, you can clearly see that they would pertain to any practice, right? Mindfulness keeps you on track with any practice, right? So this is the idea of mindfulness. And then through that, we develop right concentration, the last one. Gaining meditative stability free of laxity and excitement, or anxiety and laxity. And this is called samadhi. Samadhi is a mental state or meditative state, right? And it's a stability. It's so in meditation, this is the aim of meditation. Now, I believe that there's different levels of samadhi. I don't know if I've remembered reading this somewhere, but it seems quite obvious to me that all of these different contemplative or meditative mental states are all really, it's a spectrum of one quality. And so from the simplest end, we have simple presence of taking a few breaths, getting your mind out of the future, out of the past, and really bringing it into the current moment and focus. We call this presence. From presence, you can develop into a deeper state of presence called stillness. And it's an experiential state. It's basically the same idea of presence, but it's experiential and it's extraordinary. You can feel it. And in our text, meditation and mindfulness basics, we go into detail about that. I'm gonna let you research that yourself. We'll also be studying about it in the next couple of weeks in our 10-week meditation program. And then from stillness, one could argue that we achieve a level of what they call calm abiding or equanimity, which is the highest state of the calm abiding practice, of calm abiding meditation. And then from there, you could argue that emptiness is the next step of that. And then from emptiness would be nirvana, and then from nirvana would be enlightenment. So I see them all as a spectrum of practice. They just seem to move from one to another. They're all milestones along with it. So that's my take, and I have yet to have anybody tell me why I'm wrong, but it seems quite obvious. And especially my experience of those, they all feel the same. They're just deeper experiences of that same quality. Okay, so these are the 8, right? Any questions about the 8 before I move along? Hi, Shiva, good to see you. Oh, I miss you. Any questions about any of them? I can't see everybody, so again, just yell out. Hey, Tarpa, tell us more about number 6. Good, everybody's okay, huh? All right. So we talked about different ways to follow these. And I like the holistic idea that we're working on all of them at the same time, right? Because right view, how do you start learning right view? It's through study and it's through practicing Buddhism. So right view means learning about Buddhism. And through that, we learn about life and we learn about what life is. The Buddha asserts a clear model of the nature of reality. And if you're a Buddhist, you agree with it. If not, you're something else. But nevertheless, when we talk about right view, we talk about learning the Buddha's model of reality. So you could do that through reading, things like that, but also through practice. Oftentimes, insight meditation and calm abiding meditation, we get great insights into these things, especially insight into what we've already studied. We have the 3 great objectives of study, contemplation, and meditation. We learn something, and again, learning doesn't have to be book knowledge. It can be experiential. It could be an experience you have in life itself. And then with that understanding, then we sit down with it and contemplate it. You get a cup of coffee, sit on the back porch, and you say, now what was that chapter I just read? And then when you feel like you have it, then you take it to the cushion. And that's where the real deep kind of laboratory work goes on. It's like our scientific library is that insight meditation. And so that's how we acquire right view, right? So as you can imagine, you can't learn all that stuff before you start working on your behavior and everything else, right? Tashi?
I was just at an idea. Sometimes when we do our meditation and we're doing insight, could we do insight on the Eightfold Path and like take a day to do each one?
We could. That's a great idea, in fact. Yeah, let's do it. Thank you. And so that now that's right view. Right intention is right intention arises from right view because you have to learn what it is. Because right, in a sense, from right view, we could define all of these as being that which conforms to the Buddha's teachings. That could be the definition of every single one. What is right intention? Is that those intentions that conform with the Buddha's teachings, right speech? That speech which conforms with the Buddha's teachings. All the way down, you could do all of these, right? So right intention, you have to learn what right intention is. And through right view, we learn, what's to be abandoned and what's to be cultivated. And so that has to be learned. And then we have right speech. Now, right speech, right action, right livelihood, they're part of our refuge vows, and they're part of the 10 virtuous actions. Guess what? Right speech has to be learned, doesn't it? Right? The Tibetans would always say, re mare, re mare. It means yes or no. Re mare. So we have to learn right speech, right? When you're starting off, nobody knows what right speech is. And then right action. We have to learn what ethics are. Yeah? We have to learn what we're allowed to do. And we do that through our training, right? That's our first training, is refuge vows. And you're given 10 vows of behavior, which are by body, speech, and mind. And they tell you do's and don'ts, right? And then we have right livelihood. And again, we have to learn what that is. Right effort. Again, you have to learn what right effort is, right mindfulness, right concentration. You have to learn how to meditate itself. So clearly everything starts with right view, right? And then we have all these different forms of practice. Right intention is really kind of, you could say, right mind. It's just having your mind in the right place, right? Having that right, and we would call it an awakened intention, right? That Buddhist, the enlightened intention. It's not common everyday people's intention. It's that of a practitioner, an elevated intention that knows what goodness is and knows the difference between right and wrong. Okay, and so anyways, right intention arises from right view. But Bhikkhu Bodhi has a great way of talking about this, because here's the funny thing is that right view is the end of the path as well as the beginning of the path. So Bhikkhu Bodhi talks about the Noble Tenfold Path. And he's one of the few that does it. It's quite interesting. So it's the Eightfold Path as you see it, but then number 9 comes back to right view again. And it is, in a lot of sense, you could call it, it's almost nirvana itself. It's having a direct experience of the true nature of reality. And then he claims from right view, which I often say is just synonymous with nirvana and enlightenment. Right intention comes from that. From that perfect perspective of the nature of reality comes this completely stable, unchanging, immaculate intention towards the world. It's pretty, isn't it? It's a pretty presentation, a pretty outline. So anyways, this is I think I gave you a pretty good presentation of the Eightfold Path. But again, as far as I'm concerned, we practice them holistically. So in all of our work, we're constantly working on right view, right? Right now, you're working on right view. You're learning about the Eightfold Path. This is a huge part of learning about right view. But you just can't study. You also have to practice. You have to practice being a good person. You have to practice generosity. You have to practice. You don't wait. You don't wait to study all your studies before you decide to practice compassion. You don't wait to do all your studies before you begin to meditate, right? They're all practiced at the same time. Okay. Anyways, any comments, questions, thoughts? That's about all I have for you. I promised to make it short and sweet. Was it interesting? I think I put everybody to sleep.
No, I like
Oh,
how you
good, good.
say it comes right back around,
Yeah,
right back around to the beginning again when you get to the end.
yeah, and I think it's quite irrelevant which ones you master first. Say you truly master right speech, great, but nothing's going to happen until you perfect all of them, right? And the idea is once they're all perfected, hey, you're a Buddha, and then you get to teach this class. You'll be the first Buddha to teach this class, right? Besides Neil, that is.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
please,
Is
Clayton.
there is there something is there something that you do, or I don't know how to word it correctly, but when you don't do something correctly in the Eightfold Path, let's say you are gossiping or you tell a big lie or those types of things, is there something you should do to make up for it, I guess, for lack of
Purification,
a
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, how do you purify these things? So these are usually addressed when people make a commitment to it by taking vows like you have, right? If people
Mhm.
aren't committed to it, the advice I would be to just do the best you can. Just kind of, unless it's something really bad and you want to talk to a teacher about, something you really hurt someone. Generally, you say, "Yeah, we all do. Just keep trying to do good, right?" And in so many ways, if you can, like the Dalai Lama often says, if you just focus on the good, in most cases, the bad habits fall away because most of what we deal with are habits. We have habits of behavior. We don't really wake up one day and say, "I'm going to do this bad thing in my life." They're just habits of behavior. Where do they arise from? All kinds of crazy places, from abuses when we're small, other things. Now, there are times where we have issues in our past that need to be addressed. There's no doubt about that. But generally speaking, a lot of the stupid stuff we do, especially little things like gossip and things, they're just habits. And people need time to reprogram those habits. So we just encourage people to move towards to again to well let's it all begins with understanding. I'm getting that was my opinion, and now I'm remembering more of the Buddha sutras. So it all comes down to understanding. When you clearly first you have to clearly understand what's to be what's to be cultivated and what's to be abandoned, meaning right from wrong. And that's the tenfold path, the ten virtuous and non-virtuous actions. People don't realize that how important this was to the Buddha. This was his first clear objective, that nothing can be, you can't work with people if they just don't know basic rights and wrongs of behavior, right? Once you know those, then you can encourage people to move towards those things and renounce the others. Okay, so that's the first thing. People with vows is different. We take vows because we say, okay, I'm done messing around. I want to make a commitment to this. I want to really actively do virtuous things. And so that commitment with the teacher, with everybody, that helps us. And then when you break a vow or something, we have a purification ceremony, which SPT does every month, right? Our day of observance. Now, traditionally, lay people don't do that. Traditionally, it's done by monastics. I opened it up to allow everybody to do it because it's such a benefit to monks. I thought everyone should be able to take advantage of that, right? So that's what we do. That's how we purify. Then there's a whole bunch of other practices that I think are kind of weird. There's the 5 regrets, the 5 R's. You can read about it in our text. We have it in there. There's other like little weird practices, but ultimately it's the purification ceremony. And the purification ceremony is kind of confession ceremony. You're confessing to yourself. If it's something bad, you might want to confess it to a teacher. Monks do. If it's one of the root vows, we have to confess it to a teacher and get advice. But mostly you're confessing it to yourself and you're making up your mind. There's 4 things. Let's see if we can remember these, right, in our purification. So first, the vow is, you read the vow together. Then you wonder or you try to imagine if you've damaged or abused that vow. The third one is to have regret for breaking the vow. And the fourth one is to have determination to not do it again. Okay, all that stuff aside, there's no magic in the universe that's watching us to do all those things. It really comes down to, again, doing the best we can, realizing most of our behavior are patterns and habits, trying to reprogram our minds to do the virtuous things. How do we do that? Through our affirmations. It's simple neurobiology. Is that what you'd call it? Neuroplasticity. We're literally trying to rewrite our minds because what we're really dealing with is habits. We all creatures of habits. We all have so little free will. But the spiritual path, the Buddhist path, is one of gaining more and more free will. Whether we ever have absolute free will, I don't know. That's a big controversy. But I know we can gain more and more control over our mind and mental factors. That was a really long answer. I hope it was okay, Clayton.
It was a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all we're doing. And that's why we should have some joy. That it's just, these are just habits. Habits aren't necessarily as hard to work with as we think they are. They just take time. That's all. It takes a while to reprogram. Our minds are stubborn, you know? So they have this analogy of neuroplasticity in Buddhism. And they talk about walking in the woods. You know, Tibetans always have simple analogies. Walking in the woods. So, you know, you have a path, and the reason the path is there in the woods is because it's been tread on over and over again. So, but if you're walking to school every day and you walk on this path, but one day you decide to take a new path, and there's no path, it's just grass, but you walk it, and every day you keep going down that path the best you can, right? And slowly the grass starts to die away and you start to create a new path. Now, occasionally out of habit, you forget and you get back on the other path, and it doesn't hurt a thing. But the more you can stay on the new path, the better and faster that pathway is created. And guess what? The old path, the grass starts to grow up over the trail and it disappears. This is the Buddhist idea of neuroplasticity, right? It's like that. It's like, think about when you're trying to do a new habit, and think about it just like a trail in the woods. And when you have that habit, you want to do that, say, no, we go this way from now on. Go this way. And even now and then you mess it up, it doesn't matter. The more you tread that new path, the better. The more committed you are to it, the more it changes. That's how the mind works, whatever it is, right? Yeah. I had an experience once. I was walking home and I was hungry, and I'm envisioning going home and having a nice salad or something because I'm fat. And and anyways, I'm walking by a McDonald's, and oh man, you know, it's smelling good, looking good. And then I start to have different thoughts. And then it occurred to me that the real choice, I was making this choice, should I go to McDonald's or should I go home and eat a salad? And I thought, the real choice isn't which one I should do. The real choice is, which one do I want a habit of? Right? What you desire is habit. But if you could be mindful and you could think, no, now, what habit do I want? You know, then make a decision out of that. You'll be a lot better off. For me, I think a lot of us, when we start to meditate, we get a very subtle awareness of our minds and our thinking process. And I notice things like, if I have something sweet during the evening, guess what? I was asleep the next night, right? And if I don't, it goes away. This is habit, right? So this is how we approach these things and how we approach the Eightfold Path. Like how about swearing? That's a hard one for people to give up, I think, huh? When people's vows, I bet you all have those quarter nickel jars or something they call them, when you have to put a coin in every time you swear, and my name's on the front of it, right? And you're gonna donate the money to SBT when you're done. But nevertheless, it's just that simple, It just takes time,
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we'll have to make them up plastic jars, that
Yeah.
look like me, like a fat Buddha, and you put the coins in my head. Yeah. But nevertheless, all of it, meditation too. Meditation is a technique and a practice, but it turns into a habit that we develop, right? Practice, we're hoping to turn them into virtuous habits, right? Yeah. So let's use this whole habit thing that's always been working against us. Let's use it for our benefit. Learn how to turn that around. Yeah. And so we walk the Eightfold Path, right? Whether you're holding vows or not, we walk the Eightfold Path. That's the Buddhist path to awakening. And I think it's complete. I've been looking it over and examining it for 30 years. And I'm to the point now where I think, no, one thing about the Buddha, he nails them, he knocks them out of the park, which is an American analogy for hitting the baseball out of the park for a home run goal thing. And so, the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha just nails that. I think in my opinion, it's the greatest thing I've ever read by a human being. In fact, it's so pith and on point that it's too simple for people to understand. It's so direct that people need a long explanation of it. Like, how about the Buddha's instructions? Do no evil, do only good, purify the mind. I mean, when somebody says, what's Buddhism about? Man, that's it. But it's too simple, right? We need a big, long, well, now, what do you mean by that? We need a big presentation of what that means. So that's what they mean about how Buddhism is so, I keep searching for a word, not pith, but anybody have a better word for that? Yeah, so this is the path we walk. And so now next week, we're going to talk about the Four Noble Truths, which ends with the Eightfold Path, which is a little weird in my opinion. But I'm going to save that for next week, because it's not a short class that I was hoping it'd be. You guys get me talking. Anybody like to add anything? Okay, no, we want to all go watch television. You're keeping us from our TVs. Remember that the sutra's teachings are meant as a practice instruction. So in order to get the greatest benefit, we need to engage fully with them, utilizing the three great objectives of study, contemplation, and practice. Your work this week is to discover how these teachings apply to your life, transforming them from words on a page into living Dharma. And that means figuring out how does these Eightfold Path apply to my life? And do you really think they have the ability to liberate me? Next week, we're going to be moving on to our next topic of the Wheel Turning Sutra, which is the Four Noble Truths. It's going to be a lot of fun. So with that said, let's end today's class with our altruistic affirmation. May all be healthy, may all be prosperous, may all be well, may all be present, free of past regret and future worry. May all abide in constant appreciation, which is a source of great joy and contentment. May all realize their true nature and the true nature of reality, which is awakening. Thanks everybody for coming. I had a lot of fun.
Thank
And
you.
Great. Tomorrow we have our 4th week of our 10-week meditation program. We're going to be learning mindfulness. It's a very extraordinary and important topic. So looking forward to seeing you all there. Haley, great to see you. Thanks for coming. Me and Haley are pen pals on email. And yeah, tomorrow's going to be great. We'll have meditation at our regular time. We're going to be doing loving kindness meditation and then on to our 10-week meditation class. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Tarpa. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anytime. Bye-bye. See you.